The black mold in your bathroom grout did not come from your cleaning habits. It did not come from poor ventilation, though poor ventilation makes it worse. It did not come from a failure to use the right brand of spray cleaner. It keeps coming back because the product you are using to kill it is not killing it. Bleach-based bathroom cleaners do not penetrate grout. They do not reach the root structure of mold colonies embedded in porous substrate. What they do is oxidize the pigment, the colored compound that makes black mold visible. The mold becomes white. The grout looks clean. Within 4 to 8 weeks, the mycelium that never died begins producing spores again, and the black returns, and you buy another bottle. That cycle generates approximately $5 billion per year in household cleaning product revenue in the United States alone. It is not a coincidence that the products dominating that market do not solve the underlying problem permanently. Before any of those products existed, European hospitals had a mold and pathogen control problem that was genuinely serious. Patients with compromised immune systems, surgical wards where surface contamination caused post-operative infection, long-term care facilities where respiratory mold exposure was a documented mortality factor. These institutions needed something that actually worked, that was inexpensive enough to apply building-wide, and that did not require specialized equipment or trained chemical handling. What they used was slaked lime and sea salt, 2 ingredients. A formula documented in British and German hospital maintenance records from the early 1800s that remained in continuous institutional use for over a century. And the reason it worked? The chemistry behind why it solved the problem that bleach only masks is something you can apply to your bathroom this weekend for less than $3. Why bleach fails and lime doesn't. To understand why this formula works where commercial products don't, you need to understand one thing about mold biology. Mold is not a surface stain. It is a living organism with a root structure called mycelium that penetrates porous materials, grout, tile adhesive, drywall, plaster, unsealed concrete, to depths that a surface-applied liquid cannot reach unless it genuinely penetrates the substrate. Sodium hypochlorite bleach is a powerful oxidizing agent. On non-porous surfaces like glazed ceramic tile, it kills mold effectively because the mold has nowhere to hide below the surface. On grout, on tile grout joints, on the plaster or drywall behind a tile installation, it cannot reach the mycelium. The pH of a standard household bleach solution drops rapidly as it reacts with organic material and as it evaporates. By the time it has penetrated even 2 millimeters into grout, its active concentration is effectively 0. Slaked lime, calcium hydroxide, works by a completely different mechanism. It does not kill mold on contact through oxidation. It changes the local chemistry of the surface and substrate permanently, raising the pH to between 11 and 12.5. Mold cannot survive, grow, or germinate spores at pH levels above 10. Bacteria that cause surface contamination and odor cannot reproduce at these pH levels. The protection is not a temporary chemical reaction that dissipates. It is a physical change in the surface environment that persists for as long as the lime remains in place. This is the same principle behind why lime mortar in historic buildings shows dramatically less biological growth than modern Portland cement mortar. Portland cement cures to a pH of around 9 and continues to carbonate, reacting with atmospheric CO2, dropping toward neutral pH over years. Lime mortar maintains its alkalinity for decades, sometimes centuries, depending on exposure conditions. The medieval stone churches of Britain that are still standing after 800 years were built with lime mortar. Their walls are not covered in mold. This is not because of the climate. Sea salt adds a second mechanism to the formula. Sodium chloride at sufficient concentration creates an osmotic environment hostile to fungal growth. Mold spores that land on a salt-treated surface experience osmotic stress. Water is drawn out of the spore cell before germination can begin. The salt also delays the natural carbonation process of the lime surface, extending the period during which active pH protection remains highest. And it acts as a mild crystallization agent that tightens the surface pores of plaster and grout, physically reducing the substrate penetration depth available to new mold colonies. Together, these two ingredients address mold through three separate mechanisms simultaneously: pH barrier, osmotic stress, and physical pore reduction. No single ingredient commercial product addresses all three. The formula costs less than $3 to prepare and apply to an average bathroom. The hospital record. The documentation for this formula in medical facility use is specific and traceable. It is not folk memory or word of mouth passed through generations. It appears in institutional records. The practice of lime washing walls in medical contexts predates the germ theory of disease. Before Pasteur and Koch established the microbial basis of infection in the second half of the 19th century, European physicians and hospital administrators operated on miasma theory, the belief that disease was caused by bad air associated with contamination and decay. Lime washing was understood to neutralize the smell and appearance of contamination. It was the prevailing sanitation method in hospitals, prisons, and public buildings across Britain, France, Germany, and the Habsburg Empire from at least the early 1700s onward. What is significant is that lime washing continued to be recommended and practiced after germ theory replaced miasma theory because it turned out to work for the right reasons, not just the wrong ones. The British Medical Journal published observations in 1867 and again in 1874, noting that hospital wards maintained with regular lime wash treatments showed lower rates of surface bacterial and fungal contamination than wards cleaned with soap and water alone. The mechanism was not yet fully understood, but the outcome was observable and documented. The addition of sea salt to the lime formula appears in German hospital maintenance records and in British public health guidance documents from the mid-1800s. The salt was understood empirically to extend the effective life of the treatment and to improve adhesion of the lime wash to stone and plaster surfaces. The Prussian military, which maintained large barracks and field hospital networks with documented sanitation protocols, used a lime salt wash as the standard wall treatment specification in facilities housing patients recovering from infectious disease. Florence Nightingale, whose work at Scutari during the Crimean War is the most documented early example of evidence-based hospital sanitation practice, specified lime washing as a required element of ward preparation in her 1859 publication, Notes on Hospitals. She was not inventing a new technique. She was standardizing a practice that had been in continuous use across European medical facilities for over a century, and that she had observed to produce measurably better patient outcomes than facilities where it was not applied. This practice persisted in standard hospital maintenance specifications in Britain until the 1950s, when synthetic disinfectant products, chlorine-based, quaternary ammonium compounds, phenolic solutions, became cheap enough and familiar enough to replace it. The replacement was driven by the same commercial logic that drove every other substitution of this period. Synthetic products could be patented, branded, manufactured at scale, and sold at margin. Lime and salt could not. The formula and how to apply it. The materials are available at any hardware store and any grocery store. You need hydrated lime, also called slaked lime or calcium hydroxide, sold in the masonry section, in bags, typically 5 to 50 pounds. You need non-iodized sea salt or pickling salt. Iodine in table salt can discolor some surfaces and interfere slightly with the lime chemistry. And you need clean water. The mixing ratio is straightforward. For a standard bathroom application, combine 1 cup of hydrated lime with a 1/4 cup of non-iodized sea salt in a clean bucket. Add approximately 3 cups of warm water and stir thoroughly until the lime is fully dissolved and the mixture has the consistency of thin paint, semi-translucent, slightly milky. The mixture should be fluid enough to apply with a brush and thin enough to penetrate into grout pores rather than sitting on the surface as a thick coat. Before application, clean the surface of any existing visible mold with a stiff brush and plain water to remove the bulk of the surface colony. You are not trying to sterilize the surface at this stage. You are removing loose material. So the lime solution has direct contact with the substrate. Rinse and allow the surface to dry to damp but not soaking. The lime formula performs better on a damp surface than a bone-dry one because moisture aids penetration. Apply with a natural bristle brush, working the solution firmly into grout lines and surface texture. You are not painting a coating onto the surface. You are pressing the liquid into the pores. Work in small sections. Keep the brush loaded, and do not let the surface dry unevenly during application. A single coat applied this way takes 15 to 20 minutes for an average shower surround. Allow the first coat to dry completely, typically 2 to 4 hours, depending on ventilation. The surface will appear white or slightly chalky. Apply a second coat using the same method. After the second coat has dried, wipe the surface with a lightly dampened cloth to remove any loose lime dust from the surface without re-wetting the substrate. The treatment that remains in the pores and grout is what provides the protection. For a bathroom that has existing chronic mold in the grout, a third application, targeted specifically at the grout lines, using a small detail brush, will push the lime solution deeper into the substrate, where the mycelium root network is established. This is the application that addresses the problem at its source, rather than at the surface. Total material cost for a full bathroom, under $3. Application time, 1 afternoon. Reapplication recommended every 3 to 5 years, or immediately after any surface renovation that disturbs the treated substrate. What the industry replaced and why. The transition away from lime-based sanitation products in domestic use happened in a specific window, 1945 to 1965. This is the same post-war period in which synthetic chemistry penetrated virtually every area of household maintenance. The same period that replaced real turpentine with mineral spirits, natural wood preservatives with branded deck stains, and lime mortar in residential construction with Portland cement. The bathroom cleaning product market that emerged from this period was built on one core customer behavior: repeat purchase. A product that eliminates the condition causing mold growth does not generate repeat purchase revenue. A product that removes visible mold while leaving the underlying condition intact generates purchase every 4 to 8 weeks, indefinitely. The economic structure of the household cleaning industry is therefore directly served by products that work partially, but not completely. This is not a conspiracy. It is simply what happens when the profitability of a product category depends on solving a problem incompletely. The lime salt formula was not suppressed by deliberate action. It was allowed to become invisible because nothing about it served the commercial interests of the industry that replaced it. And invisible, over 2 generations, became forgotten. What remains of the knowledge persists in traditional building practice in Southern Europe, where lime washing of interior walls is still common in older building stock in Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece, countries where the transition to synthetic products was slower and where the older practice remained visible long enough to be passed to the next generation of builders and homeowners. If you have traveled in rural Portugal or the Greek islands, you have seen buildings whose interior walls are lime-washed every few years as a routine maintenance practice. Those buildings do not have bathroom mold problems. Closing. The mold in your bathroom is not a cleaning problem. It is a chemistry problem. The surface environment in your shower and around your toilet is within the pH range where mold thrives, and every bleach-based product you apply returns that surface to that pH range within weeks. The cycle is permanent because the condition is never changed. Slaked lime and sea salt change the condition. They have been doing so in institutional and residential settings for at least 3 centuries. The hospital administrators who specified lime washing in their wards before germ theory existed were right about the outcome, even when they were wrong about the mechanism. The mechanism was confirmed by every subsequent development in microbiology. 1 cup of hydrated lime, a 1/4 cup of non-iodized salt, 3 cups of warm water. Applied with a brush to damp grout and plaster. 2 coats, 1 afternoon. The same formula that prepared wards in British hospitals before Lister developed antiseptic surgery, before Pasteur named the organisms causing the problem, before any of the brands currently occupying your cleaning cabinet under the sink existed. $3, 1 afternoon. And the mold does not come back.